Hello, BookTube. All right, we're at part 5 of this Q&A. And we're not running out of steam. Who knows how long this will go. Joe Law 13 is next. What are your sweeping observations of Canada? What is your favorite city? What do you consider the most beautiful part of the country? What other things about Canadian culture stick with you? All of my foremost memories of Canada are from the wilderness. Deep, deep in the northern wilderness. And with far away from any cities, far away from even any line cabins, just out in the woods, deep in the woods. Those are all my favorite memories, and there are quite a few of them. I spent a lot of time in the Canadian wilderness, including up by the Arctic Circle, that I don't recommend to people. Let's see here. Thank you. You're the best, except for your dislike of Stephen King, but I can look past that. Instead of looking past it, you should embrace it, bub. UK. Anyway, Eric says, what is your take on the work of Stanislaw Lem? I like it, but I don't love it. Also, what are your thoughts on the literary designation of modern classic? I'm thinking mostly of the Penguin line of Teal paperbacks. Do you think this is a label that amounts to anything or more than a handy marketing gimmick? Well, it is mostly a marketing gimmick, yes, but you have to remember in a case like that although you can't know what a classic is because time has to pass. Time designates what a classic is, not people. Even though that's true, the people who are giving that line, that title to these newer books are extremely literate people. The people in the editorial board of these publishers that do that, it's interesting enough just looking at what their judgment calls are, regardless of whether or not you agree with it. That always interests me anyway, even though the line itself is obvious nonsense. You can't know what a classic is. Mr. Putler Gollum says, talking about Lithuania, what was the best book you read from this country? I don't think I could pick a work of Lithuanian literature out of a police lineup. Username says, number 1, what are some of the key books of nonsense literature beyond Alice in Wonderland? No idea. Not obviously one of my favorite kinds of writing. And number 2, what are some good Japanese classics? Oh, well, there's the Tale of Genji. There's the Tale of the Heike. There's Kawabata, Mishima. There's the Pillow Book of Sei Shonagon. There, even I Am a Cat, even Soseki. There's an enormous amount of it. Jim Chaplin says, does Deb Zoom? It's been so long. The Deb here is my old friend, my battered old bookstore companion, Deb, who I would love to have a weekly Zoom chat with her. There are several problems. Number 1, she doesn't have a laptop computer. Number 2, she doesn't have an active internet connection. Number 3, she doesn't have electricity. And number 4, she's in her late 90s. So it's almost impossible to do. She spends most of her time chopping wood and sharpening stones in an earth-floored room with no windows. If I can make it happen, I will. Jenny Parks says, after watching some older videos, I was curious if Frida has any new books that she likes, that she's making her way through, or is she content with her boxes? You might have noticed she doesn't attack the boxes anymore either. She's just not interested in that sort of thing anymore. She's 4 years old. She doesn't really destroy anything anymore, including the boxes that I wave in front of her. She mostly just passes on it. What's your take on spoilers? We're overly sensitive to it, but I mean, in some cases it's definitely legitimate. If you've got a new novel and it has a twist ending, you don't want to tell people that twist ending. The author is intending that some element of the enjoyment of that novel be the surprise of that twist. You don't want to spoil that for other people. But I've seen spoiler warnings on Oedipus Rex, for Pete's sake. And what's your take on Neil Gaiman? He's never done it for me. I know he has a legion of fans, but his work always seems labored and obvious to me. So it's never really worked. RMAC22 says, I've searched through your videos and could not find anything in regards to your thoughts on War and Peace translations. The mods, Peviar and Volkonsky, Briggs. There's a lot to say. It's way too much for a Q&A that's already gone to 50 videos. But there's a lot of compare and contrast to do on all of those translations. Casper Heilman says, do you please recommend a starter kit of nonfiction books on military intelligence? I'll add it to the list. Try This Again 434 says, in your 7 million videos, I believe you had time to accuse each and every young Hollywood star of being a 5-pack-a-day tobacco addict. Are there any who aren't? No. Next. Tomorrow's Classic says, number 1, what are your thoughts on the Cambridge History of Christianity books? I like them. Generally, they're very good. Number 2, what is the best one-volume history on the Jews? I still like Solomon Grazel wrote a book called The History of the Jews about 70 years ago that I really liked. I've never read one since that I liked as much. I think Simon Schama would be the one that everybody would talk about here, but I've always liked the Solomon Grazel book better than anything else I've read. Probably not in print anymore. Number 3, what medieval historical fiction captures the time best? I'm halfway through In a Dark Wood Wandering and loving it so far. Well, that would be one of my main suggestions, would be that book. Also, oddly enough, Ellis Peters' Brother Catfile books. I'd recommend those as well. They are surprisingly good at reflecting the time period and the location. Number 4, would you ever consider making a Superman starter kit with key comics? That's an excellent idea. I will add it to the list. Number 5, what are your predictions for the future of Trump? Well, what's going on? I watched through Parted Fingers from across the pond, but think sadly he will escape jail. He will escape jail. Yeah. He will have a long future, a dangerous, deadly one, unless he dies. If he dies, that's the only way to avoid it. We now know that for sure. He's out of power. He lost the Congress. He lost the White House. He was impeached a second time for inciting a violent insurrection to overthrow the country. And the Republicans are still licking his boots. They still are treating him like he's president. I thought, like some people did, that maybe that would stop once his failures were all tallied up. But this is just purely psychological now. So that's not going to change. If he dies, then it will change. But otherwise, no. Question number 6. This is not a question, but I just wanted to thank you for being a constant source of joy in your viewers' lives, especially in these rough pandemic times. Wasn't that nice of you? I want to stress what I always stress when this point comes up, which is that you're doing me the favor here. Believe you me, you are. Let's see here. Isaiah Armstrong says, what do you think of Thomas Pynchon's decision to completely hide away from the public eye? And do you think it's even possible for some writers in today's age to pull it off? Well, he's pulled it off. Well, good or bad, he has. I think it's a dumb decision, but he's done it. As he has established a reputation that lets him continue to keep himself private, but surely it would be almost impossible now in the internet age. Don't you think? It's possible to do. Pseudonyms are the way to go, not so much solitude. You'd be amazed how much you can get past an unsuspecting public if you use a pseudonym, or more than one. I think it's a dumb decision on his part. Once you become world famous, once you're in schools and curricula, you should just accept it and give the occasional speech. View from the bar. Oh my, that's trouble coming. Hey, dude. What's to be made of Hitler's sexuality? As little as possible, please. Were he and his wife ever known to canoodle? Are there common psychosexual things historians point towards? Well, there's an active conspiracy theory group that says not only did they canoodle, but that they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and successfully escaped the bunker and Germany and lived to a ripe old age in South America, where the children had children, and that there is a Hitler dynasty out there. I don't think that Hitler was sexual in any way. I don't think that he ever consummated his marriage to Eva Braun. I certainly don't think there were children. I don't think you could keep that secret. So I'm going to guess that he had very little in the way of conventional sexuality. Pete's Pensive says, have you ever been on an archaeological excavation? If so, where and what sort of thing were you digging? Did you meet any interesting characters whilst there? I haven't been in the field the way Mark Richardson has, or Sean Standfast. The closest thing I think I'd probably come is that I had a protracted and fairly up-close look at the Big Dig, the so-called Big Dig that was happening here in Boston, where the gigantic artery was being put underground. And that required a huge amount of excavation, and there are archaeological experts that were on hand for a lot of that, just in case something important was discovered. I got to learn a lot about that, but it wasn't the same thing as, digging, cordoning off patches of dirt and very carefully logging what you're doing. It wasn't anything like that. Would you consider doing a gallery tour of Hyde Cottage? Many of your paintings and artworks have appeared in various filming locations you've used over the years. Would be one of those stories behind it. That's an idea, isn't it? I could just take this tripod and walk around with the camera. That might be fun. I'll put that on the list. Let's see here. Where are you currently with your opinions of Amazon as a company? Are you still using them? I use them, yeah. I use them all the time. And let's see here. JG says, number one, barrage of questions. Number one, thoughts on William H. Gass. What are your thoughts on his novel, The Tunnel, specifically? I like it. It's a little bit willfully obscure for my taste. One thing if that's the way your thought process or your writing talent takes you. It's another thing if you're trying to do it. But I like it all the same. Number two, thoughts on D.H. Lawrence's nonfiction and fiction. Predictably enough, I like his nonfiction a lot better than his fiction. I have never understood the reverence given to a work like Lady Chatterley's Lover, which is not only bad, but poorly written. It's poorly written. Just take his name and reputation off just the first chapter and read it. You'll see tons of obviously unintended, stupid repetition, tons of bad description, threadbare characterization. I don't understand the veneration of that book at all. But I like his nonfiction a lot. There's a lot of it, too, to read. Number three, thoughts on the Magnificent Ambersons from Booth Tarkington and his other works. I think he's really good. It's just a little bit of a shame to me that the Magnificent Ambersons is the only thing of his that's ever remembered. Number four, what are your thoughts on modern-day academic literary criticism? It stinks. It's almost all worthless. And the School of Resentment, as Harold Bloom puts it. Well, yeah, he was against what he viewed as the School of Resentment, and if anything, it's gotten worse. What he considered the School of Resentment has gotten worse. But it's not the only kind of sin that academic literary criticism commits. It commits a lot of things. It's largely unreadable. It's choked with jargon. Its intention is to siphon the enjoyment out of the works that it intends to be critiquing. No. You can dispense with it completely as a whole body of reading and never miss anything. I still occasionally have to do it. I have to for reading purposes if there's something important that comes out, and also for personal purposes. If somebody writes a work of literary criticism about Marlowe or Spencer or Sidney, I feel like I have to read it. I always regret it. They're almost always terrible. Let's see here. Number five is, what is your opinion on Winston Churchill as a political figure of the past and a writer of his time? Well, I value him very much as a writer of his time. You could spend a lot worse month or two than reading everything that has his name on it. As a political figure, I resist the hagiography that attaches to his name. There's a lot of yucky stuff involved. The high-profile mistakes, misjudgments that he made, but also lots of other stuff that I don't like and that I don't often enough find in worshipful biographies of him. But I do find it. It is there. Martin Gilbert, in his great multi-volume biography, covers the bad as well as the good. And it's fascinating to read. Talk about someone whose life story as an adult is also the history of his time. My. Let's see here. John Petter says, a question about some of the biggest name authors. What is your favorite book by Haruki Murakami? Again, predictably, it would be his longest one. 1Q84 is probably my favorite one. Stretches of it, anyway. There's no Murakami that I like from beginning to end. Your favorite book by Ian McEwan? Again, predictably, it would be Atonement. And your favorite Salman Rushdie novel? I like The Enchantress of Florence, but I really like his Anton Chekhov book. His book about himself, which is what his generation of writers are destined to write anyway. It's the only thing they really care about. And I thought that was his book on his time under the fatwa, living in a series of hotels, living under a series of pseudonyms. I thought that was tremendously effective, more so than most of his fiction. Let's see here. Logan Mortensen says, number one, do you have any tips for annotating books? What sorts of things do you look for or to write down? It's going to vary from person to person. I have fallen into the habit, since I'm a reviewer, I have fallen into the habit of annotating books in two different ways. I annotate things that are beautiful or striking that I want to remember, that I want to be able to find quickly. But I also tend to briefly annotate factual stuff as well, which a normal annotator probably wouldn't do. Where if I'm reading 30 pages of a novel about someone working in a factory, and it's all interesting, and I'm reading right along, and then I notice on page 37 that for the first time in the book, the actual location, physical location, geographical location of the factory is noted. If it doesn't happen even once until page 37, I am fairly certain that it's not going to happen that often, so I will circle that. I don't underline it. I circle it because I know I'm going to need that. But I do a lot less of that now that I'm reading and annotating on ebooks, because the ebook makes searching for that so much easier. I don't really need to do a lot of that anymore, so I mostly just stick to the stuff that really sticks out with me as a reader, just personally. Number two, it's not too personal. Could you tell us a bit about what your parents were like? Did they foster your love of reading, or did it come to you on your own? No, I had a teacher who fostered my love of reading. It wasn't my parents. And they were, I barely knew my father. I didn't know him well at all before he died. He died suddenly in the peak of his strength, in the late middle age. So I didn't know him well enough to really tell much about him. I'm very, very grateful that I got to know my sainted ma. Around the time that my father died, she was just a mother to me. As odd as that is, as a way to put it, a lot of you will know what I mean. It was a position more than a person. And then we got to know each other as people. We became friends. And then close friends, best friends. And that doesn't happen to everybody. And I recognized that, and it was an enormous boon. It was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. In a way that I never got that with my father, but I got it with her. And that was wonderful. She did not foster my love of reading. No, she was not a fan of reading. As she put it, I'm saving my eyes. I used to tell her, towards the end of her life, I used to say, well, Ma, what are you saving them for? The organ donation bank? And she would say, that's your mother you're talking to, you know. Nevertheless, I think she probably read 3 books in her life. And then, oh my God, are we at the end? We are. 5 videos. Abelard Menu says, do you sometimes resent the democratization of things? I swear, I love you people. I love these questions. I don't know where you get them, but I wouldn't trade my subscribers for anybody in the world. Let's see what's on your mind. Do you sometimes resent the democratization of things? I, for example, really struggle sharing my adoration for Pushkin, but I fear, thanks to the internet, he is known and maybe loved by millions of others. Well, why would that bother you? Don't you want him to be loved? Don't you think he's good enough? That is just a terrifying thought. Why would you find that terrifying? I swear, if I live to be 30, I will not understand introverts. I will never understand them. Why would that terrify you? Why would you want one of your favorite authors not to be adored by more people? Do I need to get past this? Well, I don't know that you're going to be able to get past this. I'm not sure. I think I'd find it adorable if you didn't. But I don't understand this question at all. Obviously, I don't. Democratization is good. Period. Applied anywhere, to anything, at any time, under any circumstances, it is good. The more people weigh in, the better. In anything, at any time, provided they know what they're talking about. So a million people loving Pushkin, wouldn't that be a better world? Of course that would be a better world. There aren't a million readers, not just of Pushkin, but of anything, anywhere in the world. You can get to a million anywhere in the world. Would you want more of that? I certainly would. Don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure, 100% sure where that question comes from, but I love it. And that is the end. Believe it or not, that is the total. 5 videos of questions. Good Lord. Who knows how long it'll take for these things to upload. I had a whole bunch of other things I wanted to do today. I want to do a response to the latest bookish conundrum video from Barb at the Font. I'll have to wait on that. There's a couple of other response videos that I want to do. And a bunch of other stuff, but it's going to have to wait, because this is 3 hours of videos that I'm uploading today. That's too much, even for a big glitzy channel. Because this channel is, by some unknown feat of bribery and under the table smoothing of the palms, this channel is rapidly approaching 10,000 subscribers. Just a little while ago, we had barely reached 9,000. There's been a turbo boost somewhere along the line, and this channel is now reaching 10,000 subscribers. We're like 150 people away from 10,000 subscribers. And once I hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm officially going to be a big booktube channel, which means things are going to have to change. We're going to need pre-content ads, probably 4 of them. None are skippable. We're going to need mid-roll ads. We're going to need end-roll ads. They're going to have to be really obnoxious, and I'm not going to pay any attention to what they are, because I don't care anymore. You'll just be eyeballs to me. You'll just be, of course, I'll have to heavily monetize the whole thing from start to finish. There'll have to be a merch store, but it'll be a merch that I get a discount on. It won't be merch that any of you actually want. I'll put a poll out. But like all big booktubers, I'll put a poll out specifically so that I could ignore it. And instead I'll just do whatever the merch store wants me to do, even if it's crap, and I won't care. And I'll just expect you to buy it anyway. And every video will include calls to action. You want to smash that like button. You want to hit that bell for notifications. You want to make sure to like the video and, share it on all the social platforms that you engage in. And my own socials are listed down below, and you're going to want to subscribe to all of those. And make sure you share those widely with all of your friends. All of that stuff. All that stuff that you don't get on this channel. You don't get any of it on this channel. You get a weird old coot talking to you about books all day long. But that's going to have to change when Steve hits the big time. Don't you think? We're going to have to do all of that kind of stuff to make this the most obnoxious channel that it possibly can be. I'll need fairy lights and a fake background and lots of zoom effects and whatnot. And on Instagram, I'll have to start using the boomerang filter and the fake old filter with the imperfections all over it. I'll have to become, in other words, totally fake. Isn't that what you do when you hit 10,000? I don't know. I'll have to consult and see. My favorite booktubers didn't become fake when they hit 10,000, but I don't see why I shouldn't. And, of course, Frida will have to go. Right? I need a bigger and better, glitzier dog. I can't have a little miniature schnauzer, for Pete's sake. That might have been good at 7,000. Anyway, before you start throwing things at the screen, I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.